Hey guys, just wanted to remind you this is a continuation of where we left off. We're not all on the same page, so I'm going to start here with the colonial empire. We've already talked about this in terms of why England paved the way for the Industrial Revolution. They had access to raw materials needed for development of all the industries, and it also allowed them a growing market, consumers, if you will, to buy their products. And we see this with the American colonies. But again, just making a shout out that we've already talked about this, but it also was reliant on the African slave trade. So what I really want to get into is to examine the role that England's government played in promoting industrialization. And we talked a lot about stability in the form of the Bank of England and getting a grasp and a handle on the debt. We talked about the role of the gentry with the Protestant work ethic and things like that. So what we're going to look at is the government was sympathetic to industrial development, its financial institutions. Well, you might be saying, what am I talking about? Well, remember, England is a limited monarchy. It's a constitutional monarchy. And, when you talk about what we learned about with Colbert and absolutism, remember, mercantilism promoted monopolies, which if you think about it, monopolies are the exact opposite of laissez-faire economics. And so what we saw in the government in England, where you have a king, but you also have two bodies or two houses in Parliament, a bicameral legislature. One is the House of Lords, and obviously we're talking about the aristocracy here. But what we want to make sure that we understand is the gentry and the middle class, their needs are met in the House of Commons. So what you have developing in England is a government that is actually conducive and supporting of industrialization and just business ventures, business opportunities, promoting competition. And you didn't really have that in a lot of the other European countries. So that's really an important thing for you to understand. The middle class had a voice here. Examples of that, as you have on your notes, is the Bubble Act. If you remember the South Sea Bubble from the chapter 18, and we talked about tulip mania, where you had bubbles, with the joint stock companies and things of that nature, that sometimes got overly inflated and they burst. Well, initially, England's response to that was the Bubble Act. They totally got rid of, they repealed joint stock companies after the South Sea Bubble. What the Bubble Act was repealed, by the House of Commons, by the British government, and once again allowed for joint stock companies. They recognized it was an overreaction, so they brought back joint stock companies. They just regulated them. The Lowe's Act was also important because it allowed for limited liability. And in some of the classes today, we talked about this. Limited liability, you need to understand. Again, just like insurance, you're trying to navigate risk. You're trying to lower risk. So a limited liability corporation allows people to get involved in a business and they don't have to lose everything. If they go bankrupt or they get sued, it's limited. You can't lose your house. If I start a business and it fails, it's not like my wife and kids are going to be out in the street. So the Lowe's Act promoted limited liability. So I wanted to make sure that we recognize that. In terms of the next area on your notes, it talks about a growing demand for textiles led to the creation of these large factories in Manchester and things of that nature. I don't think we really need to go. We're talking about the constant shortage of thread, driving the Industrial Revolution. We've already been through that with the proto-industrialization. We just reviewed that the other day, so I don't want to beat a dead horse there. But what we're going to see develop here is the steam engine. The steam engine's application to textile production is probably the most important event of the Industrial Revolution. And an example of what you read in the 1780s, Richard Arkwright used the steam engine to power the looms that he had invented and required factory production of textiles. And then by 1784, Edmund Cartwright invented a power loom that was powered by horses, and then later water, and then later steam. So again, Richard Arkwright once again, and a new guy that you might need to memorize, which is Edmund Cartwright. So these are examples of how the demand for textiles led to these new inventions that will eventually spread into other fields and overall enhance industrialization. When we talk about metallurgical, we're talking about the industry of metal, that's going to flourish as, again, they start making more high-tech machinery that is going to need to be made out of iron and, again, later on, steel. Again, here's a city of Manchester, and I just want to kind of go into the results of the technology. By 1790, new machines produced 10 times as much cotton yarn as they did in 1770. If you think about it, that's only 20 years. By 1800, the production of cotton thread was England's most important industry, so textiles was king. And by 1820, cotton almost half of Britain's exports. By 1850, England produced more than half of the world's cotton cloth. So they started to corner the market. And interestingly enough, the cotton goods became much cheaper and were enjoyed by all classes. People could now afford to wear cotton slips and underwear. Remember, Joe, in the fourth period, we talked about you and underwear, and that's what we're getting at right there. So, it's no longer something that the rich people get. More and more just average people are wearing things that were just considered not too long ago luxurious. As we said, the metallurgy, that's going to be a big part of this. So the steam engine and coal is what we're going to get into in this next phase. The use of coal and steam power engines was probably one of the hallmarks of the Industrial Revolution, as your note says. The revolution in energy involved this transition, this switching from wood burning to coal burning. And prior to 1780, processed wood, aka charcoal, was the fuel mixed with iron ore in the blast furnace, and then what they did with that was they produced something called pig iron. Okay, now when we go through this and we see this evolution happen, much of England as well as part of Europe were experiencing deforestation. Again, they're losing their forests. Why? Because they're cutting down trees so they can produce this processed wood, this charcoal. So by 1850, England produced 2/3 of the world's coal. So you're thinking, what does this have to do with anything? Well, think about it. You're losing your forest. You're kind of running out of that raw material. You have a lot of coal. What are you going to do? I mean, you're going to try to come up with some kind of invention that kind of meets this need. So the more coal you have, the more money you're going to have, and this is where the steam engine kind of storms onto the scene. A guy named Thomas Savery in 1898 and a guy named Thomas Newcomen in 1705 invented the steam pump. And why did they do that? There was a problem with getting this coal. You had England's an island nation. When you go far enough down into the earth, water would seep into these mines. So they were trying to invent a device that would pump water out of the mines, and also, I'd like you to add, promote ventilation. So here's the problem. These early pumps were energy guzzlers. They were extremely inefficient. And again, they were used to replace the mechanical pumps that were powered by animals, and those weren't very good either. So here's one of the early images of one of those steam pumps. Again, the Savery and Newcomen steam pump. As you can see, big devices. As you can see there, you're just kind of, just like I said, energy inefficient, I guess I should say, with these ones. So, but they're necessary. So along comes a guy by 1769, some 65 years later. His name was James Watt. So again, we're going to see an invention that goes further to making progress, and that's what we're going to see here with James Watt. In 1769, he invents and patents the first efficient, steam engine. Watt's engine used way less fuel than Newcomen's, and by the 1780s, the steam engine was used regularly in production, all sorts of production in England. So again, that's why we call this is the most fundamental advance in technology during this era. And as a result, steam power began. Steam power. Technical difficulties. Remember, I spilled coffee on my laptop today. Steam power began to replace water in the power of cotton spinning mills during the 1780s, as well as other mills like flour, malt mills, as well as flint mills. So That's kind of what we see developing here. And the iron industry, because of this new invention, is radically transformed. And what we see is the rising supplies in coal. What's that's going to do? That's going to boost iron production and gave the rise to England's heavy industry, which is the manufacture of machinery and materials used in production. Okay, so again, they needed the increased production of coal produces or provides, the fuel needed to power the growing number of so many steam engines. And then so you have this heavy industry. Iron makers switched rapidly from charcoal to coke in the smelting of pig iron. So we get into the next slide. A guy named Henry Cort storms onto the scene in the 1780s, and he develops the puddling furnace, which allowed the pig iron to be refined in turn with coke. All right. Now, again, I'm not an expert in metallurgy and producing this stuff. I don't do this as a hobby. But again, think about what we need to see here. We need to see this transformation. We need to see, just like I said today, the agricultural revolution led to the industrial revolution. All these inventions are leading to new inventions, and industry is getting more and more sophisticated. So really, Cort helps develop a heavy-duty steam-powered rolling mill. And again, what is a rolling mill? A rolling mill is where you have the hot metal, and these rolling mills, when you basically put the hot metal into the rollers, and you can produce, let's say, like iron rails, and you can shape them into any form. So you can make through these molds, you can make new steam locomotives. Again, we're going to get into that. Locomotives. You can make metal rails for the locomotives, for the railroads. You can basically roll them into anything that you want. More steam engines. So it really, again, the thing I want you to understand here is that it opens up, a whole new industry, and that's what we said, that is the heavy industry. And so by 1850, England produces more than half of the world's iron. Temporarily, the U.S. is going to storm onto the scene soon. All right, patriotic moment there. Go U.S. So again, the next phase here, we get into a transportation revolution. Why? Because you have all of this opportunity to make sweeter stuff. And again, we want to give credit to the steam engine and steam power. So again, James Watt is just a guy that he's a game changer. Make no mistake about it. So you have you have all this new heavy industry. Well, you need to be able to distribute it. You need to be able to get it, the raw materials to the factories, and you need to be able to get the finished products from the factories out to the consumer. So what do? Well, we're going to see this transformation here. Initially, it was canal system. They were important to completing basic needs of related interdependent industries, railroad, steel, coal industries. But again, they're not as efficient as necessary. You figure canals, they'll freeze up if the temperature gets cold enough. So what we get into here is the construction of hard surface roads pioneered by people like John McAdam. Okay, again, a Scotsman. Basically, what he did is he improved land travel. How did he do it? He basically created a durable road surface made of crushed stones, cemented by stone dust and water. And again, you're thinking, oh, big deal. But, again, these roads were much safer and reliable compared to dirt roads. So, again, increasing transportation, you're increasing profitability, you're moving goods to and from places. That is all in the name of industrialization. Again, next in this segment was Robert Fulton. In 1807, the Clermont traveled up the Hudson River from New York City to Albany. So again, we're going to the United States here. What he did was he used a Boulton and Watt steam engine, and he applied that to traveling on rivers. And he made a two-way river travel possible. You could go down the river, you could go up the river. It didn't matter how the current was. It didn't matter where the wind was blowing at that particular time frame. So as you can see, this is going to make travel more efficient, and it's going to be applied a little bit later to transatlantic crossings. All right, so you're going to, again, you can get from Europe to North America, and you can get there quicker, and you don't have to rely on getting stuck where there's no wind or weather. You can just power through. So this is going to revolutionize international trade more than anything. So make sure you have that as well. So really, the biggest thing was the iron horse, the railroads. These improvements in the steam engine and the quality of iron led to the creation of railroads, and for generations, horse-drawn carts operating on wooden rails had been used. Hey, I'm running out of time. I will pick up with the railroads tomorrow. I promise we'll finish that rapidly. Don't forget to do your DVQ.